Growing up and going to school as a person of color, as I am, back in what was then the new South Africa, was very different to what it looks like now. What schools look like now. Or I imagine what the demographics of schools look like now. I remember going to school and we had separate classes in primary school. So we had Afrikaans class and English class. So it would be grade 1 English and grade 1 Afrikaans up until grade 7. So there were classes for both main languages. So you would have your Afrikaans class, where most of the stuff are taught in Afrikaans, and your English class, where most of the stuff are taught in English. My school was also one of the primary school I attended, which was also one of the very first schools to have integrated schooling, so it was very nice. And I must say, you would see the dramatic change in demographics from when I started to when it was grade 7. I mean, when I started grade 1, I think all the people that looked like me, all the colored people, we all knew one another. And because my school was mostly white at the time, all the colored people, all the kids of color, we all knew one another. And because the school was also very central, a lot of other people, other nationalities would come to the school because it was very central in Cape Town. So, like I said, we also had aftercare after school. So it was never a time of I had to go home and do homework because my dad worked for a steel company. He worked for a metal company at the time, and my mom worked in town as an accountant. So they would work very late, and I would stay at school till about 5:30. And during the time, I remember never having to go home to do homework. My homework was always done at school. So, growing up, I also kind of grew up as an only child. My sister, who was 16 years older than what I am, moved out when she was 21. So by the time I started school, I was alone in the house, and from that grew up as an only child. So I remember I only connected with her again when I was about 11 or 12, just before going to high school. So once I started school and started getting to school and attending school, as I said, there was English and Afrikaans class, and then the academic rivalry started. I remember being, as I said in the beginning, or I said last week, I was always interested in sport. But staying at school and being there for long periods of time, doing your homework, I became more academic. The school I was at was also very focused on having a balance between sport and academics. As it was Afrikaans school, or Afrikaans school before, we used to play rugby. I remember being in the rugby team from grade R till grade R, sub A, sub B. I was still in the subs, so grade R, sub A, sub B, then it was standard 1, or grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, grade 4, grade 5. I was grade 4 when I stopped playing rugby also. So I had a long history of playing rugby because that's what you do when you're younger. And once you started sub A, sub B, grade 1. Yeah. Grade 1, standard 3 is when academics started coming in. And I remember doing my academics and taking part in what was then a national test. So we were always asked to fill in every year. You would be take part in what was like a national competition for subjects. And I remember the first year I just ticked everything. So I ticked like English, Afrikaans, mathematics, Bible studies, history, like every subject. And you would do You would do that every year. And during my primary school years, I enjoyed that. So I ended up getting a knack for studying and getting a knack for academics. And that's when I think my switch happened from being a more sporty person to a more academic person. And I remember, and then starting off grade three, I remember doing this national test, and getting third place, third place in the school. I ended up getting third place in the school. Out of the whole school, I got third place according to all my stuff and whatever. Got third place, right? And that's when the big competition began. Because from that year, there was a competition, an underlying competition between me and another boy from the Afrikaans class. So all the teachers would, so if from that year, the teachers would compete or put us against one another. So I had direct competition in subjects or in my subjects between me and, let's call him Jacobus. Me and Jacobus. So me and Jacobus, so every year from grade 3, every single year it was me and Jacobus. Who would be the highest in maths? Who would be the highest in English? Who would be the highest in Afrikaans? Who would be the highest in science? And from every year, from grade 3, grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, and grade 7, we would be the top 2 students in the school. And it will be trading every year. So one year, Jacobus would get the science thing and I would be second. The next year, I would get math and science and Jacobus would be second. And then he would always get the highest mark for Afrikaans. I would get the highest mark for English. And it was a competition like that throughout our schooling career, our primary school career. And it's weird because it was primary school. And I remember this distinctly because it was such a important thing. Like we would know, you would know. So when we got our results or our exam results, the teacher or our classroom teacher will tell you, hey Grant, but yeah, this is what Jacobus got. And you'd be like, oh, you need to do better the next time. And it created a real competitive academic environment. And it's something that I kept up with now, even till today. Like, I enjoyed studying. I enjoyed learning. But I learn very quickly. And if I learn something again that I've already learned, I get very bored very easily. And it would always create that situation as time grew on that I would just get bored in class. I'll never get my grade 7 teacher, who ended up being my grade 7 teacher. She ended up taking us from grade 5, and then she took us from grade 5, grade 6, and grade 7. So we had her for 3 years. And she had a really good relationship with all of us, especially us as students. And growing up with this competitive nature, so competing with the guy in the next class, she always pushed. She would tell you, Grant, this is what you need to do more, study this more, because it would be a competition between the two classrooms every year, type of thing. And also in grade 4, I also started playing sport. So we started, like I said, we're doing rugby. And I remember in grade 4 there was another boy called Grant in my classroom. So we had the same names, we joined, and we started playing cricket. We decided we're going to play cricket. And I remember we did cricket for about all the training. I'll never forget this. We went to all the training sessions, all the practices. We were pretty decent, and then we just never got chosen for the team. We just would never get chosen for the team, or regardless of what, we would never get chosen for the team. And then if we did get chosen, we were either like reserves. I remember I was reserved once, and I never got to play. But when we were playing mini cricket or Baker's cricket, as it was, I remember Baker's cricket just started when I was at school. We were really good, and we were the top players. But when we went to the real cricket team, we would just never be chosen. And we saw there was like this trend of excluding certain players. And then the one day, I remember we just decided, hey, look, we're not gonna make this cricket team. Let's go try out for tennis. There's nobody playing tennis. There's just four girls playing tennis. We could probably beat them because how the tennis system worked, then you would have mixed teams, but you would play against the people in the team to get into the tennis team type of thing. And if you did well, you would obviously be able to play in the team. And we're like, hey, let's go. There's four girls. Let's go play some tennis. We can probably beat them. We've never played tennis in our lives, but we're gonna try out for tennis. So I remember coming home that day, asking my mom, do we have a tennis racket? And my mom asked a friend, and her friend said, no, her daughter used to play tennis, and she has a spare racket. She doesn't use the racket at all. I can take the racket. So I remember it's a Pro Kenix racket. I'll never forget this. Pro Kenix racket with turquoise blue frame with pink strings. I'll never forget this racket. It was the first tennis racket I've ever had in my life. I've had the long wooden ones. I remember my mom then got me the long wooden ones first. Well, we found these long wooden ones, but the first proper tennis racket was Pro Kenix turquoise blue frame with pink strings. And I go, and we're gonna go try out now for the tennis team. And I remember taking the wooden racket, this long old school wooden racket with me, and these Pro Kenix rackets. I think we bought the wooden rackets at like a cash converters or something. I can't remember. And we're going to practice tennis. We're gonna now start playing tennis. We're gonna try out for the tennis team. So we try out, and obviously we had no idea what we were doing, right? We had no idea what we were doing. I've never watched tennis in my life, never played tennis in my life, never knew what I was doing on the tennis court. I knew, hey, this is tennis, never knew what I was doing. Hitting the ball against the wall, and then they tell us, okay, you need to play a match with whoever, with one of the people that's in the team to make the team. And I remember just throwing the ball up and hitting the ball as hard as possible. I got into the team just by hitting the ball as hard as possible. No technique, nothing. Just hitting the ball as hard as I could. Because I was like, I'm going to hit this ball as hard as I could. She's not going to be able to return it. She's not going to be able to hit it if I just hit it hard, right? And that's what I did. I had served, I got the ball over the net. My thing was get the ball over the net and hit the ball as hard as possible. And that's what I did. And I got in the team. And then they were like, okay, you got in the team, you can play. We're going to start training. So I go home, tell my parents, hey, got in the team. And their parents are super excited. Hey, I'm actually doing sport. So this is where my switch came. So I went from being sporty to being academic, and now becoming sporty again, but sporty with academics, right? And then my mom, I think that weekend, my mom saw something on, I remember it was on the news, about a tennis development academy or tennis development program that was starting not in our area but near our area. So we stayed in the northern suburbs. This was also in the north, but like about 20 minutes away. My mom saw this thing, and my mom was like, okay, Grant, do you want to play tennis? Are you serious about playing tennis? And I'm like, hey, yes, I really want to do better and whatever. As a kid, this is me, I think, what was it, 9? Yeah, 9-year-old me. 9-year-old me. Yes, I want to play tennis. Okay. And my mom was like, okay, we're gonna go to this place, we're gonna check this place out. And we go to this place, and the coach and stuff was like, hey, welcome, where you guys from? And they're like, oh, you guys are from very far. You guys, like, I remember it was founded by Lotto. The tennis academy thing was founded by Lotto, or the lottery, right? And They were very grassroots, so they had lots of funding. All the rackets were like second-hand rackets. People can, I'm coming there with my racket, and they were very for the poorer community or people of color, trying to give people of color a chance to play sport and things like that. And I remember going there and not knowing anybody and feeling out of place, and they were like, okay, you guys need to run. And because I enjoyed sports, I was in it. You need to run, you need to sprint, and there we go. I was sprinting, I was running, and that made me feel a lot more comfortable. And I remember going training and stuff like that, and they were like, yes, we see potential in this kid, we're going to keep that. I remember them telling my mom, hey, please bring him back all the time. And that was when my tennis career, if I say my tennis journey started. So at the age of 9, I started playing tennis, and I stopped playing tennis. Like, I stopped playing tennis. When I say I stopped playing tennis, I mean like I stopped consistently playing tennis. Like at least once a week, I stopped playing tennis. So from 9 till the age of 21, I was playing tennis. I stopped playing tennis when I turned 22. I remember I stopped playing tennis when I turned 22, because then I was like, I need a break. I need a break. So from the age of 9 till 21 is how long I've been playing tennis. And when I got into the team, I remember at primary school, got into the team, and we played against one of the other schools in the area. And by then, I was an established. So after getting training, I could play tennis. I went quickly from number 14 in the team to number 1. And I remember we played against one of the other schools, and my friends, the kids I was at creche with, were the kids that I had to play against, and we were all like, "Oh my gosh, we're all playing tennis," and it was so weird. And they were twins, and they were Williamses. Their surnames was Williams, and I'll never forget the Williams twins. They were the first Williams tennis player twins that I met, or I knew in my life. And till today, we still kind of keep in contact and stuff like that. But yeah, during school, that's when the switch happened. So I would take all the tennis when it came to the prize givings and stuff, all the tennis trophies, that was mine. We knew that was mine, and then it was competing with Jacobus for the academics, and it was a great switch from being academic to balanced, having a more balanced academic and sport life, because then people started noticing me. The teachers started noticing, hey, this kid has a lot of potential, and they would nurture that potential going forward. And I remember there was one kid ahead of me in the year. He ended up being the first person of color in the school to have a leadership position. He was the first colored prefect in the school. And like I said, when we grew up until I think grade 5, all the colored people, all the people of color knew one another. We all knew who everybody was, because there were so few of us. So we all knew who everybody was and stuff like that. And then he ended up, people like I'm saying, the teacher started nursing, and this guy was like, he was like a role model to me, right? Because it's like, hey, this guy, he got in this leadership position. He was a prefect. He was the first colored prefect. I want to be a prefect. I want to be a prefect. And little did I know that the teachers were also about that. The teacher also noticed that, hey, this kid is doing well academically. He's doing well in sport. He shows a lot of leadership potential. I ended up showing a lot of leadership potential. Ended up being class, like class rep, class principal, class, keep managing the class, my class rep, making sure everything's fine, making sure the teacher if the teacher needed anything from students, I was the one that would hand out. And you would get rotations, but they like kept choosing me. And then eventually I ended up becoming what would have been the head boy. But the year we were going to be prefects, they changed the system, right? So because it was a very dodgy thing, because we normally had head boy, head girl, deputy head boy, deputy, deputy head boy, and deputy head girl. Right? And they were like, no, there's not gonna be head boy, head girl anymore. There's gonna be head prefix. So 4 head prefix and then normal prefix afterwards. And everyone was like, but why? And then we got voted, and I became head boy, and I became the head boy. It was very weird because everyone was like shocked, like everybody expected it going in, and yeah, that was the journey. So you went from academic to sporting to a balanced thing to becoming the leader, and that's when I started showing more leadership potential and becoming taking more charge, being able to manage things a bit better. And it was weird because, like I'm saying, I spent a lot of time at school. So school was like my home more than more than my home, right? So I spent a lot of time at school, like studying, keeping the books, and it gave me this sense of being more independent, and I could manage myself. I could manage my situations a lot more. I could manage. I remember becoming head boy or head prefect and having to apply for schools because my dad was working and because my mom was working. They didn't I mean they had a lot of time to, they weren't they didn't have a lot of time to assist me with what they could. When I was at home, we would have time together and they would ask me how school and stuff like that. And I remember and then I did an application for high school. And I did the whole thing. My dad had to go work in Durban. I'll never get my dad lost his job when I was in grade 4. My dad lost his job the first year we went overseas. Just before we went overseas, my dad lost his job. And remembering him trying to find a hustle somewhere and find a hustle at some place and going on the Saturdays, he would make my dad was a steel worker, so he would make metal smokers for people and put in fireplaces for people and build heaters and things like that. And when he lost his job, that became his hustle type of thing. And I remember we used to go on Saturdays and sit on the side of the road with him trying to sell some smokers, and stuff like that. He would pack like 4 or 5 smokers in his bag, in his boot, drive in the car and go sit on a Saturday. I'll never get on the side of the road near Stuckland Hospital with the sign smokers and so on, trying to get some kind of funds going, and him not wanting to be at home and stuff like that. And then eventually, I think in grade 7, he found another job, but it was a late night, so it was a night shift job. So you'd work from the late in the afternoon till early in the morning. And then I was like, I remember saying, I don't want to put pressure on my parents. I'm going to apply for high school. I'm applying to one high school, and I'm going to apply to get in. And I remember doing that. And then my parents were like, when I got in and going to high school, like having the interview, and my parents coming home, and they were like, oh my gosh, you did this. And they were like so proud, because I was like, no, I had to do it myself. I didn't want to put so much pressure on you guys. And they were, because I ended up being a more independent person. And from that, I think that's how I ended up learning to do more things, like for myself, making sure I understand how something works, I understand how things go. I'd rather try and do something myself before asking for assistance, type of thing. And I remember growing up also, like I'm saying, my dad would worked at a steel place before he got retrenched and stuff. And I always wanted to be, when I was growing up, I always wanted to be a radio DJ. I was thinking about this the other day, and when I was younger, I really wanted to be a radio DJ. So I grew up listening to Good Up FM and 5FM and Mark Gilman. My dad was like the cool dad in the car. Listening to Mark Gilman, growing up on those type of DJs. And I remember thinking when I was younger, I really wanted to be a radio DJ. I really wanted to be a radio DJ. And being a radio DJ was like my goal. And yeah, but as I realized very quickly, academics came very easily to me, especially competing in. I used to take part in Stateford's, and I used to take part in all these other tests, these national tests and stuff. And having that ability, it was understated. Like I said, I was sporty. I didn't understand how I was sporty and academic at the same time. And growing up in, primary school was a very different one. And like I said, I ended up losing interest very quickly if something wasn't interesting. So it was nice being able to understand and realize, hey, I want to do this. I like this. I like this. And that's when I started liking science. Because, like I said, teachers saw, hey, there's potential for this kid. And they were starting to nurture me and nurture me into becoming a more academic student to stand out and do better. And that was one thing I rated about private school, how they supported me and throughout my career, and knowing that, hey, they laid a good foundation for me to succeed.